What's up YouTube? Today I'm gonna show you guys my top 5 tips for really growing your arm size. Now before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, just destroy that thing, and also turn on those bell notifications so that way you don't miss any episodes. Also, we just dropped our merch line. You can check it out using the link in the bio. It's great stuff. We print it all in-house. We make our stickers, we make everything in-house. It's really cool merch, so if you want to support this channel, that's a great way to do so. You can check out the link down below in the description. All right, this is the top 5 tips to grow your arms. Let's get into it. All right, now before we get into this, I want to tell you guys that this is speaking completely anecdotally. This is off of my personal experience and people that I've trained, the growth that they've seen through doing these methods. Some of you might be wondering, who the fuck is this guy? My name is Skyler Nykoda. I'm just one half of the Outlier Theory podcast, and I've been training for almost a decade now. So I have quite a bit of experience in the game. Still a lot of experience to gain, but I've been working out for quite a while. So I have quite a bit of experience when it comes to building my body and working out these individual muscles. I also competed in my first ever men's physique competition last year, and I got 2nd place, and I'm pretty ecstatic with that. So before we get into the tips, I want to tell you guys that if you want to grow massive arms, the key is really to hit those triceps. The triceps actually make up a bigger portion of your arm. They're actually a bigger muscle. Your biceps have 2 heads, the long head and the short head, whereas your triceps have 3 heads. Your triceps actually make up 55% of your arm, whereas your biceps, they're about just 30%. So the tricep is actually a much bigger muscle group than the bicep. Now it's important to know that even though the tricep is a much bigger muscle than your bicep actually is, you still want to maintain about a 1-to-1 strength ratio, meaning that you want your triceps and your biceps roughly about the same strength. You should be able to pull just as much as you can push with your bicep to tricep, whereas some other muscle groups, like your quads to hamstrings, roughly have about a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning that your quads should be able to push 2 pounds compared to your hamstrings that would only be pulling a comparative 1 pound. So what does this mean? Work them out the same. Try and maintain the same amount of strength in both of them. You do not want to create muscle imbalances to where your bicep is stronger than your tricep or the reverse, because this is going to cause muscle imbalances and cause injury down the road. So let's get into my top 5 tips to grow those massive arms. All right, so the first tip is to pre-exhaust your muscles. Go through a movement before you get to your main exercise. Say you're going to do a tricep extension. You want to pre-exhaust those triceps before you go into that tricep extension. And you want to do this with a very light, minimal effort exercise. So my example for this would be an individual banded tricep extension. You're going to tie 2 bands to the rack and you're going to grab one in each hand. And then you're going to do a simple tricep extension. Now this is great because the bands provide a little bit of resistance, not a lot in this case. We're not trying to work them out hard, we're just trying to prime them. Now, I'm also a huge advocate of this movement because it's an isometric movement. We're utilizing both arms at the same time, but we're still pulling individual resistances since the bands are completely separate. I really recommend doing it this way because you're going to be working out your arms individually, which means any muscle imbalances you're going to correct in this movement. Whereas if you're using just a straight bar to do these tricep extensions, both arms are going to be pulling on the same resistance. So if your left arm is much stronger than your right arm, it's going to compensate so, and you won't notice that during the exercise, thus causing that muscle imbalance to even further grow. It doesn't matter what exercise you're doing, as long as you're doing it in an isometric fashion, so that way you're priming each arm individually, so that way they can both fire the same amount during that main movement. All right, so my second tip is elbow positioning. This is something that I find is often overlooked in people. Your elbow is such a key player when it comes to working out your arms. Now let me explain what I mean. When your arms are by your side, when your elbows are tucked into your sides, that limits the amount of range that your arm has to stretch when you're doing a bicep curl. Whereas if you actually position your elbow behind you, your bicep is going to be elongated in a much bigger stretching position. Thus, it will have more range of motion to curl that weight up, causing more tears in your muscle fibers, which equals more growth. The same goes for the tricep. A skull crusher, where you're laying down on the bench and have your elbows positioned directly in front of you, is going to be a much different range of motion than it's going to be with an overhead tricep extension where your elbow is positioned above your head. Play with the elbow position. Do a set of tricep extensions with your elbows tucked into your side, and then superset that with an overhead tricep extension where your elbows are above your head. You're gonna start feeling the burn because your tricep has to work differently in each position. All right, so my number 3 tip is all about wrist positioning. The wrists as well as the elbows play a huge part in your contraction or your extension of your muscles. Let's take a dumbbell bicep curl for example. When you're curling a traditional hammer curl, you're gonna be contracting your bicep way different than you'll be contracting as if you supinate at the top of this bicep curl. Now, for those of you that don't know, supination is when your palm is facing towards your body. A pronated grip is when your palm is facing away from your body. And a neutral is right in the middle. So when it comes to biceps, I highly recommend whatever curl motion you do, you always supinate when you get to the top of that movement. But it all depends on your body and what works best for you. So play around with all these wrist positions. God, it's hot in here. It's like 90 degrees. This is crazy. All right, now this next one is one that I'm a huge advocate for. My tip number 4 for growing massive arms is build a mind to muscle connection. Don't just do these exercises completely mindless. Do not perform a curl completely mindless. You need to be aware of what your muscles are doing. You have to realize that just because you get the weight up does not mean that the movement is done. What happens when you work out is you actually cause little micro tears in your muscle tissues. And so the entire time that you have that weight loaded onto your arm, into your palm when you're doing a bicep curl, means it's tearing your muscle that entire time. So you don't stop reaping benefits when you get to the top of that movement. So when you're lowering the weight down, you are still getting benefits from that. And with that, play with your times of how long it takes you to bring that weight up to your chest and how long it takes you to let that weight back down. Something that I would recommend would be a 1, 2, 3 count on the way up and a 1, 2, 3 count on the way down. If you do this, I promise you, you will feel the burn and you'll feel it fast. So if you really want big arms, you'll give this a shot. And this isn't only for your biceps. You can change the amount of time that it takes you to reach full extension and full extension. Full extension and extension. Extension, ascension. So really play with these numbers. All right, my last tip for you guys, my tip number 5 is volume. If you want any muscle to grow, you need to hit it, and you need to hit it a lot throughout your training week. So if you really want massive arms, if you really want your triceps and your biceps to be bulging out of your shirt, then you need to increase your volume. And what I mean by that is increase the amount of time that you work out that particular muscle group. So if you're trying to grow big biceps, throw in a set after your workout, every workout. When you increase the amount of volume that you put resistance on these muscles, they're tearing and they're rebuilding constantly. And you're gonna see massive growth because your muscles are going to be adapting. Let me explain this with an analogy. If you have 2 people who had just got hired onto the job and they have to learn how to hammer a nail, person number 1 only works 1 day a week. Person number 2 works 5 days a week. Who do you think is going to learn how to hammer a nail more accurately faster? The person who's working 5 days a week because they have more experience. Your muscles work the same way. Well guys, that's my top 5 tips on how to grow massive arms. I think UPS is here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to this channel. Please smash that like button and tell your friends about us. Also, if you want to support us, check out our website, theycallus.outliers.com. You can check it out in the description below. That's where you can find all our merch, sticker packs, everything that we have to offer for you guys to purchase to help support us. So that way we can continue to put out content and do what we love here with the Outlier Theory channel and our podcast. So you can check out anywhere you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or here on YouTube. All right guys, I'll see you next time. Peace.